eventually, as of now, I don't think free will exists, but I think freer will exist. In fact, the part of the brain that helps you cycle also helps you enjoy music. It is possible to transmit information through light. We know that. It's just insane to think of what that can do to cognitive capacity. Like suppose we add another layer of the prefrontal cortex, except now we are using laser-based technology for transmission of signals. A left brain person will know that, yes, I have a problem. Whereas a right brain injury person will not even feel that there is a problem, because the right side of the brain is where self-awareness comes in. An implanted chip might open up more doors of communication. I might actually, I could technically, if I'm feeling something, I could send over that feeling to you, possibly.
Hi everyone, welcome to our podcast. Today we have a very special episode for you. We have Dr. Sid Warrier with us. Siddharth is an accomplished neurologist, TedX speaker, and a fellow podcaster. And through his videos, he's brought neuroscience to mainstream conversations today. He's helping destigmatize mental health and is facilitating conversations around mindfulness, learning, and behavior change. Make sure you watch this one till the end. You won't regret it.
Hey Sid, it's so lovely to have you here. How are you doing?
Thank you, Jay. Very good. Thank you.
All three of us, you of course more professionally, me to some extent, and Karan as well. We are spelunkers in the world of the mind and psychology and brain science to an extent. And actually, one area that I wanted to pick your brain about was in terms of, there's some research actually I have been looking at, which is on how there seem to be, to some extent, cross-cultural differences when it comes to brain functioning. So actually, basis this, I was wondering if you had some thoughts on ये cross-cultural जो differences है in terms of brain functioning, ये Indian context हमको कैसे shape करता होगा? How do you think the Indian mind, which of course is a broad generalization, how do you think that might be impacting the processing functioning of the brain?
So definitely culture plays a big role in how we shape our identity. Because I feel that the brain, when like a newborn's brain is capable of turning into anyone. Right. And of course, genetics play a role, but I'm a big proponent in the trifecta of modulation, which is agent, vector, and environment. The genetics do play a role, but the environment plays a very big role. And then the person themselves will get to decide what kind of person they want to be. You know, so we do have some agency in that. When you grow up, especially like in an Indian environment or an Asian culture, we grow up thinking about ourselves as part of a bigger picture. Right. So right from childhood, we are brought up with that idea of being in a bigger family. Who you are is very much subjective to where you stand in that social hierarchy. Right? So we always think of ourselves in that, from that angle, from that lens. And so we grow up with that thought process, and it takes a long while before we can discover ourselves. Right. And so we discover ourselves out of that holding of social constructs. In the West, I believe that individual identity is brought into focus a lot earlier as compared to the Eastern culture. It has its advantages and its disadvantages, because that social bond plays a very big role in reducing anxiety.
That's true.
So you know, if you think of all the social bonds that you have, and if you always have that in your mind that yes, I have that kind of support system, even in the decisions where you feel like it has nothing to do with your family and friends, you would find that just having that at the back of your mind gives you that sense of calmness. So these things affect every aspect of our lives. Just the way that we think of social support has a big role to play in stress and anxiety, which covers everything.
That's true.
right? Yeah.
And it's so important to acknowledge that social relationships are something that we thrive on. And because maybe we've always glorified the West, individualistic personalities are also being glorified in a way where we feel like it's cool to not need people. But actually, I feel like it's an inherent need in all of us, and it's better to acknowledge it than ignore it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are not wired to be islands.
Yeah.
None of us. And while it might be true that eventually the path or the journey of spirituality and self-realization might take you to a place where you realize that you are truly independent.
Yeah.
Actually, what that means is that you realize that you're connected to everything and everyone, whether you are talking to them or not. That is what detachment means.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't actually mean that I don't need anybody.
Yeah.
So, and I also feel that we shouldn't be prematurely detached.
True.
Let detachment come. It'll come along that journey of spirituality somewhere.
Yeah.
But you can't just, this is one situation where you definitely should not fake it till you make it. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah. But that's such a beautiful thought. Yeah. That's so
and
true.
spirituality is about engaging with the world. मेरे एक readings में one really powerful visual metaphor I found is there are these Zen woodblock carvings where they capture the journey of spiritual journey in like 12 wood carvings, and they use the metaphor of a man taming a bull, the relationship of course being us taming the mind. So very beautiful is कि पहले you're not aware the bull is there, then you hear the bull ka sound, you go through the woods, you catch it, you try to tame it. After you tame it, you bring it back, you're playing the flute, the bull is under you, then both you and the bull rest.
Right.
Then there is no bull, then there is no you, there is just emptiness. But the final wood carving is, you see this person wearing tattered clothes, walking down a mountain back into the town, and he has a bottle of sake in his hand. And the point of it is, ये सब आपने no sell, ये सब attain किया, but you are then re-engaging with the world, and you're re-engaging where you're going to the bar, where people who are maybe most disconnected from the spiritual life in one sense, in conventional morality terms, you're going and you're engaging with them as opposed to sitting on a mountain alone. So what you said is really beautiful कि आएगा detachment, उसको आप seek करो तो unnatural हो जाता है.
Yeah, I mean, so again, no harm in seeking that also, but prematurely concluding that yes, you have reached there, I think that is a very dangerous thing. So even in Bhagavad Gita, there is a very strong, powerful thought that says that bhakti is very good, like devotion is very good. Knowledge is also good. So jnana is also very good. But even if you can't do these two, you still better do karma, which is action. You still better do your job. You still better do your responsibilities, whatever it is that you're supposed to do. And then you'll get to where you're going. But if you don't do that, and you are directly trying to go for knowledge or devotion, you're directly trying to go for detachment or, sab kuch chhod dena, you're not going to make it. So the path has to lead through action. Without action, nothing else will happen.
We just touched upon loneliness and isolation, and I think one thing that's been disturbing both me and Karan is a different kind of isolation, in a sense, that's plaguing our countries and many other countries, and that's this whole phenomenon of political polarization. अलग-अलग हमारे opinions हैं on politics, on morals, on religion, on ethics, on social issues, and clearly there's a lot of discord, there's a lot of disharmony, and everybody को लगता है कि I am morally or logically right, others are morally logically wrong, and specifically in our country also, I'm feeling like it's creating a lot of isolation in terms of disunity हो रही है, and nobody's fixated. Okay, maybe nobody is too strong a word, but people are not fixated on how can we make it better. It's about how can we make the other side look bad and prove that we are good. But I guess my question to you is, according to you, in terms of your understanding of the brain and of the science of the brain, is there a way we can create an antidote for this? Is an antidote even possible?
So I don't think there is an immediate antidote, because if you take a step back and try to look at what is actually happening, people are struggling to find an identity. Okay. So if you look at the whole world, there are 8 billion people. That is 8 billion brains capable of taking their own unique decisions.
True.
Right.
Absolutely.
So technically speaking, there could be 8 billion religions. There could be 8 billion political beliefs. Technically speaking, because everybody is very unique. But our need for group identity is extremely strong. So we will tend to start believing things that other people believe in around us. And whoever has the loudest beliefs will tend to aggregate more and more people towards them. I believe this is inevitable because of the way that our limbic system is designed. Eventually, I'm not sure how long it will take, but eventually, I believe that our prefrontal cortex will keep evolving enough for us to understand that some of these are just limbic primitive responses, and it's time to let them go. But until this happens at a species level, this division and group formation is going to happen no matter how advanced our technology gets. One way we could probably accelerate the evolution of the prefrontal cortex is through education. So maybe, just maybe, if you start teaching children about the brain, not about right and wrong, but about how all right and wrong is subjective, and how the brain works, and how decision making is manipulated. And we try to bring everybody into the realm of science, where science says that some things are true because it is measurable, it is reproducible, and it can be argued upon, and it can be proven. So if more and more people try to have conversations based on those principles, there is a chance that we can all shift towards a very different kind of society. But this is very idealistic, and I honestly don't think it's possible.
That's true.
Because I'll tell you why also. Fundamentally, it's not about which god. It's not about which animal is pure and which animal is not. And it's not about that. It's that if you have enough number of people listening to you for whatever reason, you have power. And once you have power, you are not letting it go. Right? So suppose if I start a neuroscience cult and I have 1 billion people listening to me talk about how the brain is responsible for everything, and these are the things that you have to do to improve your brain. And whatever I say, they do. And now if somebody else is also starting a cult, that becomes an opposition. And whatever I'm saying, the limbic part of my brain is still threatened by this other cult. Right? And we have come full circle. So until and unless we can somehow override that limbic system, that primitive threat responses, how dare they encroach upon my territory, that feeling, we are not really escaping hate. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sad truth, unfortunately. But we spoke about forming the inherent need of forming group identity, and something that's also led through that is our addiction to social media. You are both a neurologist and a content creator. We wanted to know, are there any principles of neuroscience that you keep in mind before creating content that would maybe make it more engaging or make it more attractive for the audience?
I honestly, my experience in social media content creation has been just experimentation. Because I try to just go out there and be as natural as possible. I share random things. I'll share snippets from my life. I'll share poems that I've written. I'll share some songs that I've written. If for some days I feel bored, I do an Instagram live at 2 a.m. Just playing some guitar, because for me that's just like an extension of me. I'm not. For me, social media is not just it's not a business. I still feel like I'm a doctor. I go to the hospital, I treat patients, I come back. Social media is still for me a place to have fun.
Right.
Self-expression.
Yeah, absolutely, self-expression.
But then also, even if you're just expressing yourself, you're in a way connecting to people that relate to you, and that's in a sense forming a community. Maybe can we delve into that aspect of building a community and what one can do from a neurological perspective to build trust with their audience?
That's actually a great point. A community is essentially a group of people who feel that they can learn and grow together.
Yeah.
Right. In the earliest days, community was primarily for safety.
Yeah.
Like you stick together, so you survive.
Yeah.
Today, it's not so much about safety, but as much as it is about growth. So you want to hang out with people who can contribute to your life in some way. Either through entertainment or through knowledge or through job opportunities, something. Right. So but the safety part doesn't go away. So anyone who's able to provide a safe space for people to do all this can form a community. Right. So you do need to be a voice of reason. You do need to be a voice of trust, so that you can set in some ground rules. And in that playground, everybody can just do whatever they want.
And another aspect of this that I've always found very fascinating is the crazy kind of fandom that happens, for example, with K-pop or even huge Bollywood stars like Salman Khan, for example. Like, have you thought about this? What is it that creates this kind of crazy fandom for people?
Yeah, this is very interesting. People actually look for themselves in every piece of art that they see. Whether it's a painting or it's a piece of, it's a movie. And this is a very good life skill. So people with empathy are able to grow much faster. So if, if Karan is doing something and I'm looking at Karan and I see Karan fuck up, right? Now I know that fucked up because I can see your expressions. I can hear what you're saying. I can feel your pain. And so because of that, my brain is learning that this is really painful. Don't do what Karan just did. And so even though I have not spent the time and the energy doing that thing myself, I have learned an important life lesson. Whereas if I have no empathy and no interest in your life, I'm not going to pay attention to you. I don't learn from it. And the chances are that I might do that same thing myself. So empathy is a way of just transferring information very quickly, emotional information. Right. So people will find empathy useful. And so that's why it's an evolutionary trait that has been carried forward. Actors are great because they make empathy easy. So when you watch a film, when you watch Shah Rukh Khan act and he's dying of cancer, you feel that pain. When he's crying, you are crying because of your empathy levels. You're watching them. The same thing also applies for hero worship. You are imagining yourself partly in that role. Like, oh, wow, I can do this. So you are getting inspired by them. And so now whatever they do, you are a part of your brain is imagining yourself doing.
Do it.
And if you keep doing that enough, they become you become them.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate level of fandom. So if somebody insults, if I'm a huge fan of Shah Rukh Khan and I've been watching his movies for the last 10 years, somewhere his identity and my identity have become linked. And so if somebody makes fun of Shah Rukh Khan, they're actually making fun of me. No wonder I get upset.
It's almost like what drives us to watch sports, right? Like by watching my sports team win, like by proxy, I'm sure neurologically, and perhaps I'm mistaken, but it's similar kinds of reward pathway activations as compared to if you were to achieve something. you're doing it without having to spend 15 years learning a sport, excel, navigate team politics and this and that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you celebrate like you just won the match.
Yeah.
You know, and you also cry like you lost the match.
Yeah.
Like you are the one who got bowled or you are the one who got run out.
Yeah.
And you get annoyed. Like,
Yeah.
why didn't you run faster?
Yeah.
You're living that moment
Yeah.
because of your empathy levels.
Yeah. Although there's one thing I find very interesting, and I don't know आप लोग के families में होता है, but when watching sports, we win, but they lose in the sense कि हम जीत गए, देखो हम World Cup जीत गए, अरे ये टीम हार के आ गई, इनको खेलना नहीं आता है. There's a word for it, na, basking in reflected glory, and then the flip side is cutting off reflected failure. Failure है तो it's Indian cricket team. जीत गए तो it's us, India जीता. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point. So if you are spiritual, you can also use this technique where if you're happy, then yay, great, life is awesome. And when something shitty happens, sab moh maya hai.
Yes.
Kya farak padta hai?
Yeah.
If you have that, essentially it's hypocrisy, but it's very useful hypocrisy because this is hypocrisy which is self-care.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to feel good, but nobody wants to feel bad. This is not rocket science.
Yeah.
But definitely fandom is one part of being on social media, but so is facing hate, so is facing the trolls. From a neurological perspective, is there something that ties in the reward structure of the brain? Is there a high that they get after hating on someone?
After you hate somebody?
Yeah.
Yes, actually there is. So think about it this way. If you're on an island and there is nobody around you, your own identity becomes very questionable. Because all of your identity is actually in comparison to somebody. Right? So you're a kind person, but kind compared to whom? You're a calm person, but calm compared to whom? You're an angry person compared to whom? Everything is subjective. Right? So when you hate, there are two aspects to it. One, you are defining your identity more and more. Every time you define your identity, it is a reward system. There is a reward system in your brain. Because now you're committing that this is who I am. And two, usually by hating, you are becoming part of a community.
That's true.
So usually oxytocin is the part that makes you bond with somebody. And oxytocin is also part of the reason you hate somebody.
Our group, yeah.
And that's the flip side of oxytocin. Because the more you love somebody, the more you will hate whoever is outside of that group.
Exactly.
Right? So you hate somebody because now you're part of a community. And so that sense of community gives you a lot of dopamine. So this is very subtle. And the predominant feelings are still threat, anger, fear, all of those things. But deep underneath, definitely there is some amount of pleasure that exists within hate.
So this makes me feel like somehow things are wired in a certain way, and that would determine how we behave. And that brings me to this very famous debate between determinism and free will. I think this has gone on for too long, and sometimes we feel like we have the ability to choose, and sometimes it's like I think it's all predestined. I was wondering if neuroscience has something conclusive to say about this.
It's not conclusive, but I do believe that all of evolution has been an attempt to increase randomness of decision making. Right? So the further back you go, the more tightly coded decision making is, or the more simply coded decision making is. It's very linear. It's A to B, B to C. That's it. Right? So if A happens, you know that C will happen. So these are simple reflex arcs. So if you hit your knee, your leg will jerk. That is a reflex arc. There's no choice there. It's just one single linear circuit. But as the complexity of those systems keep increasing, more and more variables keep getting added. It is still predictable, but now it's more complex. And the more variables you add, you are increasing randomness. And why do you increase randomness? You want to increase the probability of more outcomes, of unpredictability. And essentially, free will is the extreme level of unpredictability. Right? The opposite of free will is that everything is predictable. But this is just like the words chaos and random. It is observer dependent. Chaotic to whom? Predictable to whom?
That's true. That's
right?
true.
So if a ball, like if I kick a football in the air, where it lands is completely chaotic to me. My brain cannot calculate कि कहाँ पे आएगा. For Lionel Messi, it is absolutely predictable. He can draw a small X on the ground saying कि यहीं पे गिरेगा वो. Right? Because his brain is able to calculate all the angles and everything perfectly. Right? So when I think of chaos and randomness, I always feel that it is based on the processing power of the observer.
That's true.
I feel similarly for free will. I feel that eventually, as of now, I don't think free will exists, but I think freer will exist. So I feel that every step of evolution, we are a little bit more free than the previous species. But at some level, it is still predictable. And marketing shows that, advertisement shows that. There's a reason why it works. Right? Politics show that. Certain things you say, most people will react in a certain way. Why is that? So definitely human beings are less predictable than animals. Animals are still less predictable than smaller animals, and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean that we are completely free. It's not an absolute. That's what I'm saying. It's a spectrum. But there has been too many friendships lost over this argument, so I'm not going to go any deeper. Because there's a concept called as, is there a true randomizer? There are multiverse theories of free will, and it's just oh god, too many nights spent down this argument.
Scary topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think questions like these are difficult to have like that clear-cut resolution to it, and also sometimes in terms of people functioning, there are some necessary illusions we need to have. Like whether objectively free will exists or not is a different question, but in the realm of my subjective experience, if I feel like I have no control over my environment, I have वो concept है ना, external locus of control. I feel जो भी होता है life में, it's out of my control. It inevitably मेरा emotional landscape को negatively impact करेगा. So I feel like regardless of objective answer कहाँ है, subjectively it is important to feel like you're choosing to some extent.
The illusion of free will is extremely important. For us to survive. And so
function as a society also.
Absolutely. So in fact, honestly speaking, we are only wired to live within an illusion of free will. If it was truly free, right? If there were no rules, we would all lose our heads.
That's true. That's very true.
Right? So imagine, okay, if we were just free to say anything, language would fall apart. The whole idea of language is that I will say a certain set of symbols, or I will write a certain set of symbols, or say a certain set of syllables, and you will take it to mean a particular thing. That means that neither you or I are free, because we're already bound to rules. If we were truly free, then I can make any set of noises and you can interpret it in any way. And then you can just do any action, and I can do any action that my mind can conceive of. Society disintegrates in a second. So a free will, true free will, is a very dangerous thing. It's not sustainable.
Not at all. I don't think, in fact, and you touch upon this in so many conversations as well, वो computing के लिए resources ही नहीं है full free will के लिए. Like we are sort of, we want, क्या बोलते हैं, we're wired for, in some sense, efficiency कि कम में कितना ज़्यादा कर सको, which is why we also then subscribe to particular ideologies as opposed to, you know, constructing our own from bottom up or something like that. It's the example I always think of is मैं पहली बार जब भी वो वॉक एक्सप्रेस टाइप की दुकानें होती है ना, where you have to choose your noodles, choose your veggies, तो मैंने I thought मैं choose करूंगा, I will take broccoli, this or that sauce. Finally, the cup of noodles I had was made by me. Cup of noodles my friend had was chosen by her out of the predetermined set. Number 2. Mine tasted bakwas, hers tasted great. Lesson learned. It's easier to just, that works. Of course, you don't want to apply the same ideology to life, but
Yeah.
I do understand why it's easier to choose to not have complete free will.
Right. There's a concept of cognitive load. How much do you want to load onto your processor?
Yeah.
And suppose if every single decision in your entire day has to be a separate decision, which is what free will means,
Yeah,
you will burn out.
that's true.
Like you wake up and then, okay, which side of the bed do I get up? Which leg do I put forward now?
Yeah.
Do I brush or not brush? Which toothpaste, which toothbrush, which dress, what breakfast? You know, everything has to be decided. You can't, right?
You
like it's
can't.
cognitive overload.
Yeah,
And it is the exact opposite of habit forming.
that's true.
So in fact, an efficient day is one where most of the things are just happening like clockwork.
Yeah.
And that's how you get more things done,
More things
which is
done.
how you get achieve more, which is what makes you happy. So the argument that being free makes you happy is in itself false.
That's true.
And maybe that's why people like Mark Zuckerberg prefer wearing the same t-shirt every day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Actually, we're of course talking about free will and the lack of it, or to what extent freer will. But I think there's another realm of human experience which I was personally very curious about, which is the realm of supernatural and paranormal experiences. So based on your understanding of the brain again, could you shed some light on what in the brain could explain something like, say, for instance, a ghost sighting or something like that?
Throughout history, we have always had experiences that could not be explained by the present day scientific knowledge. This is nothing new. And usually in the next 100, 200, 500 years, science evolves to discover a new phenomenon that can now explain this. One example is seizures.
Okay.
There was a time when we didn't really know what seizures are. In fact, we didn't really know what the brain does. And having electrical activities in the brain that are going on in an uncontrolled way can lead to your hands and legs jerking and your mouth frothing and your eyes turning white and you screaming. Completely looks like you are possessed by a ghost or a devil. And people have been put to death. People have been put in asylums. People have been, or on the other extreme, people have been, they have been worshipped because, you know, a young girl doing this, they thought Mata chad gayi hai, no, Devi aa gayi iske andar. We will apply whatever knowledge we have of the universe to explain whatever phenomenon we perceive. This is how story of humanity has been. Eventually, we will get more evidence. Our explanation will change. More evidence, our explanation will change. So at no level are we done. So today, I will say that this is a seizure. Now, in 100 years, after, say, a completely new technology comes up that allows me to see the brain in an absolutely different way, my understanding of this might change. Hypothetically, in 100 years, suppose there is a machine that can measure the effect of dark matter on neural networks. Hypothetically. So today, dark matter does not come in any medical textbook. It barely comes in physics textbooks, right? But we know it exists. We know it exists everywhere. As far as we know, it doesn't change our anatomy or biochemistry at all.
Yeah.
Right? So far as we know. Hypothetically, in 100 years, suppose we can detect that in small clumps of the universe, dark matter might suddenly spike up and it affects neural networks.
Mm.
And that is why a seizure happens.
Yeah.
Suddenly, my entire understanding of seizure changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Does that mean that I'm wrong today? No.
Applying.
It means that I'm wrong 100 years later retrospectively.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why when somebody says that they saw a ghost, I have no arguments for it, because that is how their brain has interpreted whatever they have experienced with the knowledge that they have today.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, that's how humanity grows. No problems. But if you face new evidence and you ignore it, then it's an issue.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And also, एक तो individual का brain होता है, but like if you look at, there are certain mental disorders which are culturally specific. Like say for instance, amok in I think Malaysia, the Dhat syndrome hai. And I also often wonder ki what social function does something like this fulfill. So say for instance, जब भी देवी चढ़ती है in our context, you see in the context of the family structure, जो youngest bahu होती है, who in a traditional patriarchal structure has to keep her mouth the most shut, एक कोने में कुछ मत करो, ये मत करो. You see this flip over happening where you know आपका mother-in-law, father-in-law उसके पैर पड़ रहे, उसके ये पड़ रहे, and they're listening to her. And I'm not saying it's play acting or anything like that, but it's almost like this is a culturally sanctioned way for her to reclaim some of her autonomy back.
Yeah.
कि often the words that Devi says कि इसको you know अपने family को यहाँ visit करने दो, या इसको हर 15वें दिन ये खाने दो, something that she likes. So it's almost like it's a culturally sanctioned way for her needs to be met.
Yeah.
And so unconsciously she sort of
This also happens though. I mean, we have seen a lot of psychogenic seizures. So these are there's a branch of neurology called as functional neuroscience. Functional neurological disorders. They're called as FND.
Okay.
Which is, they're not play acting. They're not pretending.
No.
But it is as if a part of their brain starts taking decisions without their voluntary control. And the MRI is normal. It's not that they have a brain tumor or anything. Normal MRI brain, but a part of their brain just, in colloquial terms, snaps. And starts doing things that they can't control. So I've seen cases of functional seizures, functional hemiparesis. They can't move their right hand, their right leg. People think they have a stroke. But MRI is normal. And then just counseling them, telling them things will be okay, finding out what is it that has stressed them out, having their in-laws apologize to them. It just makes it all okay.
Definitely.
Humbling.
It's fascinating. Neurology, working in a neurology hospital is fascinating. Like you will see human beings in a completely different light.
What's also fascinating is that these things are constantly evolving and we are learning new things every day. We also wanted to know your thoughts on some of the cutting edge new technologies that we are seeing. Firstly, could we talk about brain-machine interfaces? Could you shed some light on those and how they are evolving right now?
Sure. So we are already living in a world of brain-machine interfaces. It's just that the translation rate is really slow. In fact, we've always had brain-machine interfaces. Language was the first brain-machine interface.
It's an interesting thing.
It's essentially, we have to convert neural networks signaling into some reproducible form that can be handed out across through time and space to another neural network that can then convert it back into signals. Essentially, that's what it is. And that machine can be anything. It could be writing on a stone tablet. It could be writing on a piece of parchment. It could be typing on a screen or doing a Zoom call or implanting a chip in your brain. The only thing is that the rate of translation is becoming faster and faster and faster.
Right.
So human beings are still having as many thoughts as they did 10,000 years ago. Like they're just thinking, right? Always thinking. But if I'm writing to you, how slowly are all those thoughts getting converted and reaching to you and then getting converted back? But now, as soon as I'm thinking, I'm saying, that sound is traveling through the mic to you and you're hearing and converting it back into your own ideas. So now it's much faster. That loop is much faster. But I'm still not able to convert all of my signals into sound, into tones. An implanted chip might open up more doors of communication. I might actually, I could technically, if I'm feeling something, I could send over that feeling to you, possibly. These are all interesting doors that can open up. But it just means the quantity and the quality, or rather the quantity of information and the speed of communication will be affected as technology improves.
I think it's going to improve with time, like you said. Another technology that I found very fascinating was optogenetics and how they're creating the brain with light. So could you talk about that a bit?
I actually had this thought like a few months ago. I was having this discussion with a friend that why hasn't evolution figured out information transfer through light? Why are we dependent on... So initially it was all chemicals, hormones. One part of the brain will communicate with the other part of the brain through chemicals. So unicellular organisms, it's all chemicals. And then wiring started. But wireless kabhi hua hi nahi. Maybe give it another 100 million years. Maybe. That brain may, instead of wires, imagine if we could have lasers. The transmission rate would be so much higher. But then again, speed is relative. So we say that 4 billion years and we still haven't figured out light transmission. I mean, what is 4 billion years? Is that too fast or too slow? I mean, that is such a relative thing. Maybe in 10 billion years, we will figure it out. But what is amazing about human beings is that we can speed up evolution. So it is possible to transmit information through light. We know that. It's just insane to think of what that can do to cognitive capacity. Like suppose we add another layer of the prefrontal cortex, except now we are using laser-based technology for transmission of signals. That'll be a good, interesting world to live in.
It's very, very
What have you read about optogenetics? I'm curious.
One way I found out about it was Dr. Carl Deiseroth does a lot of work in this area. And what I find very interesting about him is he's sort of like us. He's also, he's not purely a research scientist. He's also a psychiatrist. So he's also like practicing, consulting clients. And I remember bahut pehle, before I'd even seriously taken up this field, ek TED talk unka tha. And you'd seen small experiments jahan, you know, ek mice ke head area pe one particular type of light they were flashing, and they were being able to basically create activation in some motor cortex mein area. So the red light flash karo, the mouse would run clockwise. Blue light flash karo, it would run counterclockwise.
Oh, okay. So there are ways of stimulating or inhibiting parts of the brain. You can do it through sound, you can do it through light, you can do it through magnetic energy, you can do it through electricity.
That's true.
So there are different ways of doing this. All of them are very transient. None of them are sustainable. But it does open up the doors to machines that can control what a person does. So that's dystopian.
Yes, it's a scary one. There's another, actually, we're talking about like areas of the brain and this and that. And one thing I've been reflecting on, and you're the expert again, so I'll defer to your opinion. But I'm mindful of research. Like, say, for instance, there's, I think, Dr. Russell Poldrack in Stanford, I believe. But essentially, they're doing this work using computational neuroscience. And what they're basically saying is कि conventionally हम लोग जब भी brain के बारे में सीखते हैं और बात करते हैं, हम लोग बहुत क्या बोलते हैं, almost generalizing terms में बोलते हैं कि this is the part that is related to vision, occipital. This is the part that is related to this. This is the part that's related to that. And there is a truth to it, no doubt. That is the basis of neurosurgery. But based on his research, what he was saying is that actually, if you look at brain processes, ये जो हम लोग brain का compartmentalization करते हैं is actually not an accurate way to capture what's happening. What's actually happening is there's activation happening in like 14 different parts to different intensities. So I was wondering again, what are your thoughts on this? And do you think we can reach a future where we aren't talking about the brain in terms of like, this is the part of the brain that does this, this is the part of the brain that does that? Or do you think?
No, I think it depends on to whom are we talking? So if I'm talking to somebody who has never really thought about neuroscience ever.
Yeah.
And I tell them that all parts of the brain does everything.
Yeah.
The discussion ends right there.
Yeah.
So what will they take home? There's nothing, right? So it's like trying to teach a kid A, B, C, D. But before that, you start off saying that these are abstract symbols and they mean nothing. You can't do that. Like, so before telling somebody that all networks of the brain are interconnected and vision actually uses up almost 80% of the brain's cognitive capacity is used up by vision, but that doesn't mean that it is only vision. Sound also uses up almost all of those same networks. Because the brain is very efficient, so it will make the same area do multiple jobs. In fact, the part of the brain that helps you cycle also helps you enjoy music. It's the same. So the entire motor system is used up when you're listening to music. So because it's the same calculative part of the brain. The part of the brain that helps you balance yourself is what is helping you figure out the beat of a song. It's same areas will do multiple things. But before we get to that, we first have to kind of go through that same steps of knowledge that humanity went through. So first we thought that this area does this and this area does this. So then we teach that. And then once they've understood that, then you can say that, but now we have understood that this also, there is interplay in different. So now it's clear. Now we get it. Okay, this is what happens.
No, but it's I think it's very important for I guess someone in your position also to say ki we talk about this, but like this is a way of simplifying it. This isn't necessarily it. Just like one common bit of, and again, maybe you're the expert here, but one sort of approach people have is left brain, right brain. You know, it's very gross ways of looking at something that is more complicated than that.
I love that you brought that argument actually, because initially it was all about left brain, right brain. And then this whole movement swung to the other extreme, saying that there's no left brain, right brain.
Yeah.
It's all parts of both sides of the brain does everything.
Yeah.
And now it's again swinging to the left brain, right brain, saying that yes, even though both parts of the brain are involved in language and both parts of the brain are involved in music and cognition, there are still differences.
Yeah.
So you can't ignore that there are no differences.
Yeah.
So we realize that yes, earlier we were oversimplifying it, dividing people into, oh, you are a left brain person, oh, you're a right brain person, which is obviously false. But just because we found out that was wrong doesn't mean we ditched the entire concept.
Exactly.
Because I have seen patients who've had a left brain lesion versus a right brain lesion, and they're completely different.
Yeah.
Right? Not just that their right hand and left hand were not moving. Apart from that, their personality changes were different. A left brain person will know that, yes, I have a problem. Whereas a right brain injury person will not even feel that there is a problem, because the right side of the brain is where self-awareness comes in. A left brain person will know that, yes, I have a problem. Whereas a right brain injury person will not even feel that there is a problem, because the right side of the brain is where self-awareness comes in. Science is to keep up with the fluctuation.
Yeah.
It's fun. Why not? I mean, imagine if everything that you've read is going to be true forever. I mean, that's kind of boring.
Yeah.
This keeps it exciting.
Yeah. Dude.
Dialectic को embrace करो कि थोड़ा pendulum वाला चक्कर होगा, and to also I guess be able to embrace uncertainty, which is not something we're wired to, but once you are able to embrace uncertainty, you can then truly be on the quest for truth. Until
Exactly.
you don't embrace it, फिर आप सच के सोच में की तलाश में नहीं. Then you're in तलाश of मुझे किससे शांति मिलेगी, अच्छा लगेगा.
Beautiful. Exactly. It's like saying that एक IPL हो गया, जो जीता वो हमेशा के लिए विनर हो. अरे ऐसे थोड़ी ना यार, अगले साल वापस होगा.
That's a perfect metaphor.
We'll see. Truth is a recurring seasonal thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sid, for this conversation. We'd love to touch upon many, many more topics with you, but this has been really enlightening. It's been really nice having you as a bouncing board, as a source of ideas, as a mental sparring partner. Before we end today's conversation, are there any parting words that you have?
I loved your questions, and I love the flow of the conversation also. You guys are great podcasters.
We had a great time talking to you. Thank you.
Cheers, man. Cheers. Both of you. See you. Bye.
Bye.
And to our viewers, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you want to hear more such conversations, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you know the next time we upload a podcast. Do let us know in the comment section below what insight you found most interesting and what you learned from this conversation today. And we will see you again very soon in another episode. Take care. Bye.